because I always felt like I was one of those punching clowns. Yeah,
Mm,
you could knock me down. I was always resilient. I'd pop back up, but I
mhm,
popped up to the same place that I was in before.
mm.
So for me, radical resilience is what I did is like I went down so deep down that I had to climb up and I had to figure my way back up. And again, that's what I tried to put into the return way.
Hello, and welcome back to another episode of the Nourished Life for Christian Women. I am so excited about this interview today. My guest today is Karen Rubinstein. Karen is a speaker, a writer, and resilience coach who knows what it means to start over. And after hitting rock bottom with alcoholism and emotional burnout, she rebuilt her life from the inside out, not just to survive, but to develop real, grounded strength. She's the creator of The Return Way, a practical framework for radical resilience that helps people understand the thoughts and fears driving their reactions so they can respond with steadiness instead of panic. Through workshops, speaking engagements, and her newly released book slash workbook, Karen guides individuals and groups through lasting identity shifts and deep inner rebuilding. She believes our hardest seasons can become our greatest teachers, and that no one is meant to white knuckle their way through life alone. Amen to that.
Mhm.
So, Karen, let's just start. Your cat is so cute. Let's
Callie.
kind of start with your story. Your how did you come to be doing what you're doing now?
Yeah, my story, I kind of felt like when I was growing up and going through college that everybody had like a guidebook to life, and I was just kind of like bumbling along. And I did have a career. I was graphic designer and stuff, got married. I did have a tumultuous path. I have a history of abuse, sexual abuse and stuff. Finally had a huge turnaround in my life that I couldn't cope or deal. I went through a trauma with therapy abuse and I dove into a bottle, which I never expected to become an alcoholic. Honestly, at that phase of my life, I just didn't have any coping skills and I was so filled with fear and with pain that growing up, if anybody was ever stressed, it was like, oh, have a glass of wine. So that was my coping skill or tool. And unfortunately, when I tried to stop, I thought I was in a better space. And I thought, well, okay, I'm done with drinking and I'll go back to life as it was, assuming I would go back to having a glass of Chardonnay with like my fish or whatever, at a mealtime. But I couldn't. I couldn't stop. And if I tried to stop and I picked up again, it was increasing.
Mm,
And I was astounded. And then finally, I just gave up. I thought, well, I guess I'm just a drunk. And I just resigned myself. But then I had a rock bottom. And luckily, my husband was very firm that I needed to be in rehab. And I went to rehab and I realized that, like, reflection and going into a 12-step program in rehab and living with 14 other women who held a mirror up to me and kept saying, your story that you're telling us doesn't match what we really sense in you. They knew that I wasn't living like I was putting up a facade. And then it started cracking in that time. And I realized that I had been living a facade most of my life, putting on a pretense of like the perfectionist and a good girl. And my hair always had to be perfect. Everything had to be perfect. I had the perfect house. I had the perfect husband. And thank God he's still around 30 years later. But everything, everybody, if you asked me growing up or whatever, they would say I was perfect. And that was a big toll because inside I didn't feel that way. Like I said, I felt everybody I knew had a guidebook of life or
mm,
something. So how did I get into this? So I hit my rock bottom. I went to rehab, best thing that ever happened, worst thing that ever happened, I thought at the time. And I started realizing that alcoholism was not my problem. Addiction is not the problem. It's a solution to the pain that people are in. So when I realized that, I that was a revelation that, wow, like it was because of pain, that and unhealed wounds. So for the first 2 years, I didn't do anything work-wise. I focused on my sobriety because at my worst, I was drinking almost a half gallon of vodka a day. I mean, I was really, really bad, really bad. And so my first 2 years, I knew if I didn't focus on sobriety and get a really good foundation, there was a possibility of relapse. And in the first year out, I lost 6 friends to overdose and death.
Mm.
They died. And two of them I was very close with. So that was a little fear, that a little healthy fear. There's healthy fear. This one was like, keep keep going in the right way, do the next right thing. And I picked up tools along the way, tools I had never had and didn't even know they existed. And then once a couple of years were under my belt, a woman in my program was like, you'd be a really great life coach. And I was going to therapy at the time, which was good at that moment. And she thought that so too. So I went back to school and I got a transformational coaching degree, a mastery in it. And I loved the program. I'm still in touch with the people from there, wonderful people. So it was a great journey. And I set up shop with coaching and I started working with women. Then I started through a suggestion. They're like, and I thought about it, like women are they don't really use the programs as much as the men. You'll go to a meeting and it's 90% men, 10% women. And I know we're out there. I was drinking at home and I didn't know where to get help. So I started an online community, which I still have on Saturday mornings, Women in the Room. And we have a small group that meet, and it's lovely. It's all about emotional and spiritual growth because at this point, the further you get from the bottle or a substance, it's more about improving and constantly growing. So if I keep my mind and my body, my spirit in alignment and healthy, I don't have an urge to drink. If that is a miracle, I don't even think about it. It's not, people could drink in front of me, it doesn't resonate. So I go further and further from that. And then I wanted to reach a wider group instead of one-on-one. And I am super blessed. I've had the miracle of having alcoholism taken from me. And I've also had the miracle of getting my voice back. I lost my voice at 14 when I was in high school because I was so filled with fear. I went from a small Catholic school to a big high school. I was overwhelmed. I lost my friends and I couldn't speak. If I raised my hand, which I stopped doing, my throat would close. So I ended up having to write really good essays. I became really proficient at it. I was a journalism major in college because I could write, I could not
Mm.
speak. I could not. And
Mm.
I had a teacher once say to me in front of the whole class, here's the highest grade in the class to a girl who I didn't think had a brain in her head. So, on that note, over a year ago, a couple of years, actually, it's been a couple of years, I went on stage to tell my story and to share it. And that I liked it. And I liked being able to reach a wider audience with the message of hope. So fine tuning. And I didn't want to just go on stage or do workshop. I didn't want to like lead with my pain. Like, here's my story and what I overcame. What I just gave you now, I like it because it's just short and sweet. This happened, things happen to people. I wanted to hit with lessons that I've learned and the tools that I've picked up because not only did I recover from alcoholism, I am off all sleep medication, antidepressants. I had acute depression from the time of 17 till about 4 or 5 years ago. I had sleep disorders that I would wake up screaming or falling out of bed, and I sleep soundly. So all of these things, so it's all tied up into your mental state, my mental state, and being as healthy as possible. So a couple of years ago, I'm sorry, I'm so long-winded, I feel. A couple of years ago, I'm like, and then, but it's not a direct, it's not an easy path. So a couple of years ago, though, what happened was my husband was diagnosed I saw a mole on his head and I go, oh, you really should get that looked at, get it off. I
Mhm.
didn't think anything of it. They found out it was stage 1 melanoma. And then every time he went to the doctor after that for visits, following up for surgery, it progressed from stage 1 to stage 4 in less than 4 months. Just
Mm,
like it went from 1 to 3 to 4. And the last, the that brought me to my knees. Like when the doctor called me at home and I had to ask her, "Are you telling me it's stage 4?" I literally fell to my knees. But I got up, reached out to friends who like just you know, don't isolate. There's a big rule. Don't isolate. If you're feeling down, I know what it's like to want to just pull your covers over your head. Don't isolate. Reach out, reach out, reach out. People are understanding. So I got out with friends and but I also my faith went deeper. Acceptance was huge. I accepted it. I didn't try to hide from what it was. And then I felt like I was there totally for my husband, and I was very fortunate. At that point, I had 4 years of sobriety. And then people started noticing that I was handling it really well, that I was calm. And they were like, I want what you have. Like, how do you do this? How are you
mm.
not falling apart? And they kept asking. Finally, about a year ago, I started putting together a formula, like a step by step. I was like, I can't keep saying, oh, I don't know, or,
Figure
like
out
this.
how I did this.
It's like beats me, like it's like no, because once I sat down and really started writing it down and thinking about it, okay, what happened first? What happened second?
Mhm.
And finally, I was working with a coach who was like, well, try to put an acronym to it. And I was like, well, that's a good idea. That was Brenda like a year ago.
Mhm.
And I was like, well, and I matched letters. And finally, it was return. And I feel like that's God-given because it's a return to self. Like
Mhm.
I felt so lost. And my method brought me back. I wasn't broken or I wasn't this. I was very lost. So it's a return to self. It's a return to love.
Mhm.
And so anyway, that is, and now I joined the National Speaker Association. I just graduated from Speaker University. I have a lovely new speaking coach who's so supportive and spiritual and on a very, very faith-based path who I love. And I'm going to be starting work with her tomorrow. So yeah, it's all good. Life is good, and that is the very long answer.
I want to circle back to a couple of things that you said when you were talking about being in rehab and that the facade started to crack. That can be a really terrifying moment. And before we get into that though, I want to say the reason that I invited Karen onto the show today is because what she does is I've never struggled with alcoholism myself. I've never needed, to go to rehab for any reason. But what she teaches and this return way that she has, it applies to so much more than that. For her, the path was alcoholism. For other people, it's shopping or spending or food or even just difficulties. How many of us found ourselves asking, why do I act like this? Why do I act this way?
Yeah.
And it doesn't have to involve alcohol or any kind of rehab at all. It's so much bigger than that. So I wanted to preface with that. But so that moment, going back to that moment when that facade starts to crack and how terrifying that can feel, that doesn't have to happen in rehab. It can happen for any of us at any time. And we've like, okay, I've designed this persona of what I think I should be. And then when that starts to crack away, can you talk just a little bit about that moment and how maybe for you, how you can feel that terror, that fear, and to keep going, not just go, no, I have to keep holding this together. Where's the tape and glue, man? I got to keep this up. How can we let go of that? Because I think there are a lot, no, I know there are so many people that struggle with that. And that's one
Yeah.
of the things that I love about you is just you're just so honest and authentic. And that came at a price.
Yeah, no, that's a really huge question. And thank you for that. No, rehab was great. And I call myself a grateful alcoholic, but you're right. I, hmm, it applies to anything that we use to escape or take us out of our lives because we're so like I lived a life of quiet, very quiet depression, doing everything I thought I was supposed to do and not quite understanding why I didn't feel right, like why I was depressed, why I
Mhm.
wasn't sleeping, why wasn't I happier or at peace,
Mhm.
always looking outside myself. So yeah, for me, basically, I could have, if alcoholism didn't wasn't part of my story or something big happened, big life moments can be life changing. And a lot of people that come out the other side are the ones that are like, oh, wow, this is what I learned. So for me, I had a big life changing moment that pushed me against the wall and was like, either you change or you end up in prison or death, because that's the path I was on.
Mhm.
So for me, it was an extreme, and no, it doesn't have to be. But it was scary to be in a rehab and to be called out and to try to keep that smile on that I always got by with in life and
Mhm.
pretend everything was okay. But it was like, how could everything look where you are, girlie? Everything is not okay. Like it was like crazy. Like I'm standing in a burning house. Like would you like a cup of tea? Like it was crazy
It's cold
talk.
tea. It will help with the
Yeah.
heat of someone's house.
Anybody want an iced tea? And like I was like hostess with like it was I it wasn't working. So I was forced to like look at myself. I want to? Not initially. No, I wanted people to think I was perfect. I was scared to death, and my perfectionism was so that people loved me. It's always for me, and actually, the root fear is always about afraid of losing love and a
Mhm.
search for love.
Mhm.
So I'm
So
surrounded
that
by,
100% agree. That's the fear. So now that you're on, mostly, it's still a journey, but mostly now that you're on the other side of it, talk about that. Maybe if there's somebody who is at that point of I know something has to change. I can't keep because I don't feel like myself, and
yeah.
I want to be myself. But it is terrifying to let go of that facade, to let it crack and fall away. Talk about what's on the other side of that makes it worth letting it crack, letting it fall away, and doing the work that has to be there. What does it feel like now for you?
Freedom. It's freedom. It's freedom. It's freedom to be myself because I have a love for myself and a love for others. I'm more connected with people through a love and through my core self, as opposed to a fear-based thoughts of how I want to be perceived, how I want people to see me, present myself. It was all masks. The way that I approach it now on a day-to-day level is really what I wrote about. Because I know if I'm agitated or out of sorts, which could have been any day of my life for all my life, if
Hmm.
I was like feeling a little angry or a little sad and I didn't know what to do, it was like, well, I guess I'll go to the gym, or hey, I guess I'll watch TV, or gee, I saw this really great dress, so I'm going to go
Hmm.
buy that, even though I'm maxed out with my cards. Like avoid, avoid, avoid. Like my emotions when I would feel them, if they weren't happy, like nobody's like, oh, I better try to understand why I'm so happy. No, like, why am I so happy? That's a real pro no. Like we get so we get upset, we get angry, and it's like, well, why am I acting this way? Like, what is going on? And so we try, like, we want to be pleasant. Oh, I'm angry, but that wouldn't be really nice. Again, does anybody want some iced tea? Like, just be nice, be nice. So now I respect my emotions. Now I'm able to identify them. I was at a point that I really, if you asked me how I was feeling for a good part of my life, I would have been like upset. Upset isn't even an emotion. It's like a mush of like all these emotions. So now it's like I've pulled apart, I can identify, and I use them as tools like a little flag, like, oh, something is disturbing. But here's what I want people to understand. Nothing, nothing, nothing outside of myself, no person, no place, no thing can disturb me. The disturbance is an old wound that hasn't healed. So that helps a lot. It gets me out of the victim mode. It gets me out of the life is happening to me. Accept what is happening, put a little distance, and then look inside and go, okay, what are my thoughts about this? So it's a whole identify emotion as a flag. It's not, and it comes and goes, but it's a little indicator and it's a tool like, oh, okay, I'm feeling this. Why? And
Mhm.
then understand, and then you go deeper and deeper, and then you
Mhm.
turn it around.
I have another follow-up question for you on that. So you talked about how the perfectionism is about wanting people to like you and wanting to be accepted. And that's such a natural thing, and there's nothing wrong with that. Um, we're social, we're created for connection. I mean, as Brene Brown says, we're hardwired for connection. So
Mhm.
that's an important thing. It's not something we want to just go, oh, I don't care about anybody. That's not the goal. But that wanting to, I feeling like you have to have your life in a certain order and be a certain way and do certain things in order to have that acceptance and to have that approval and that love. Do you find now on the other side of letting that facade crack and fall away that the connection that you have feels more real? Because do you trust more now that people who are connected with you actually love you and not
Oh yeah.
love the facade?
Oh yeah. That was and that was like so exhausting to not, to like have this pretense. And I didn't even realize that I was doing it. It became it's like, oh, that's who I am. Oh, like I have things that we think are good, like an overachiever or something, perfectionist. Like these are things that
Mhm.
we think are good, but they're tiresome because it's all the front, it's all the fear, and it's all saying, "Oh, I don't think you're going to accept me. I don't think you're going to love me unless I do A, B, C, D."
Mhm.
So I was very afraid, and going back to like when it cracked open. It was like, holy God, like if they see me. But suddenly, like I, after I was there 5 months and I was able to say things I never thought I would tell anyone. I was honest and very open. And I received love. I received no judgment. So I was very fortunate to be in a situation that I could find that. But I find that now with the people that I attract on a like, it's funny because the deeper and deeper into my core self and who I am and my love, and I speak through that, I'm attracting people that are safe. It's funny because when I was living a life on a pretense and fear-based mode, I would say that I don't know. I had some unsafe people come into my life,
Mhm.
who could tell. Predators can tell the difference between a mask and like what the turmoil going on behind the mask, and like really, really good connected people. It's a fear of losing love, and what's funny is that you gain more love. You gain more love in your life. Give love, you get love. It's funny because that is how I lead now. Like if I know that if I can speak my truth, I used to speak my truth in a fear-based method of I need to tell you what's wrong with you, or I need to tell you why I'm like blah blah blah. And it was all fear, and it created more distance in my
Mhm.
life. But when I lead with love and from my heart, which I was afraid to do, I thought I had to protect my heart, which is silly because that is the last thing you need to protect is love. Love is eternal. Love doesn't need protection. If I lead with love, I get love. And it's like there is no problem. There's nothing to defend. So the more ego I can keep shedding, and I still have my spots that I get a disturbance and I have to reflect. And I'm like, what old wound is still there? What old wound? And I know it's a me thing. When I realize, and that's a lot less scary. Hey, man, oh, you don't have to be afraid of the world. You don't have to be afraid of people because it's all within you. And don't be afraid of yourself either, because
Mhm.
it's not a scary thing. It can be a little upsetting to go, scrape layers off because we think that these masks are who we are. But the
Mhm.
more and more we shed, I have gotten to a place of such peace and such happiness. Every day? Yeah, every day, not every hour, but every day.
Mhm.
So, does that make sense?
Yeah, the journey continues. So we're going to stop here to end part one of this two-part interview. So the journey will continue next week, where we get more into the return method and how to stop acting the way that we don't want to act. Join us next week.